Happy 413 and welcome back to Fridgestuck. Today we're taking a look at the maid heiress on the journey of her life, Jane Crocker. Jane Crocker's name was suggested by no fan. It be hussy again, folks. The name means God is gracious, and it's the feminine version of John because of course it is. The surname Crocker derives from crock, another word for an earthen jar or urn. Kind of startling how it connects with her form in the previous universe. Crock is also North American slang for nonsense, and Jane is also known to be very skeptical towards anything out of the ordinary, almost naively so. Her chum handle Gutsy Gumshoe is shortened to GG, just like her daughter Jade's. The name alludes to her love of detectives and problem sleuth. It may also be connected to her go-getter attitude, even in the face of multiple attempts on her life. Because of these many said attempts, her father, Dad Crocker, has grounded her indefinitely. She is literally homestuck when she's introduced. As stated earlier, Jane is also a fan of Hussey's Problem Sleuth series. Not only are there several posters in her room, but Jane also sports a beast on her symbol shirt. In Problem Sleuth, beasts initially existed in the imaginary side of the universe, when a character's window is turned off. Fitting considering that Jane appears directly after the window serving as the fourth wall is broken. Beasts are bloodthirsty, and if it kills you in the imaginary universe, you lose one imaginary life. And if the beast kills you in real life, you're sent to the afterlife and meet death. Tying in with Jane's fierce temper and possibly hinting at her life powers and the future events of the Game Over timeline. Beasts are horribly weak to candy, however. Ever the baking fanatic, Jane initially strifed with spoon kind and later fork kind after Betty Crocker's rebranding on 11/11/11. Jane is the biggest fan of Betty Crocker because she loves baking and because of her being the heir apparent to the company, and definitely not because of the devices with the Betty Bother application. What subliminal messages? And now it's time to explore the alternate universe. Beta Universe Jane falls to Earth on April 13th, 1910, and is immediately adopted by humorist Colonel Sassacre and his wife, Betty Crocker. 8 days later, Jake joins her, and Jane and Jake are raised as brother and sister by the cruel and merciless hand of their grandmother. Though the siblings vowed to escape together one day, at age 13, Jake runs away from home with the family dog. Jane, too scared to follow, is left behind with the evil Betty Crocker. Jane began to learn the art of baking from her grandmother, determined to defeat Crocker at her own game. Jane set as the heiress to the baking empire. This explains why both Dad Egbert and Dad Crocker were so into baking, I guess. But Jane still missed Jake, hearing about his fame and adventures from secondhand sources. One day she mentioned her brother to Crocker and her wish to be reunited with him. The Baroness told Jane that would never happen, saying that she would do everything in her power to keep them separated. She tells Jane the secrets of their origins and that the pair of humans were destined to marry and birth 2 children, a son and a daughter, who would save the world. The Batter Witch was determined to stop this from happening, to keep Jane and Jake separated for the rest of their lives. With this new information, Jane spent years digging deeper into the secrets surrounding Grandma Crocker, and discovered not only her plans for world domination, but also that the Batter Witch wasn't even human, but an alien, Alternia's ruler, her imperious condescension. But when Jane was moving to reveal all of her dirt on the Empire to the world, the Condis disappeared without a trace. But with one final petty twist, the Condis made Jake heir to the Betty Crocker Company, instead of Jane. Jane took this with stride, continuing to follow in her adopted grandfather's footsteps and pursue a simpler life in comic japery. She briefly considered seeking out Jake and fixing their strained relationship, but decided that the time for their destined marriage had come and gone. Jane soon married one Mr. Egbert and had a son, but years later, she still looked back on her younger life with some regret. She ran a small joke shop well into her 80s. That is, until April 13th, 1996 rolled around, and a small boy with a large book and an even larger destiny dramatically entered the scene. And thus was the end of Jane Egbert. Until she got revived as a ghost sprite, and now there are two of her. But both of her want to support current Jane, and for her to live her life unfettered by all the regulations they had to endure under the Baroness's rule.
To be fair, you could have probably read Nana Sprite's story again and got the same result, but Miss Jen was really excited to edit this section.
The first time Alpha Jane appeared in Homestuck is on page 4113, a 413 with an 11 in the middle. The important number for the Alpha Kids and the Cherubs being 111111. Speaking of cherubs, Jane is said to be Calliope's favorite human kid, presumably because of relatability. Jane is also described by Caliborn as being chubby and large-breasted. Jane denies this, but guest artists for the comic often depict her in this fashion anyway, showing some truth to the claim. This does not mean that she's unattractive, as several characters, including Dave and Rose, have referred to her as John's hot mom. One of the more interesting things we learn from Jane's planet, Lokah, is that the Alpha Kids are not called heroes, but instead are called nobles. This is due to the fact that the consorts discovered that they would be playing in a dead session, with no hope of creating the universe frog, at least not without outside help. This is mirrored in the names of all four of the Alpha planets, depicting a home for the dead and a type of noble gas. This is also shown with Jane's Crooksite tree literally bearing no fruit, just like how the game will bear no frog. Speaking of Spurb's planets, Lokah and Jane's denizen is Hemera. In Greek and Roman mythology, Hemera is the primordial deity of the daytime. She's seen either as the daughter or sister of Nyx, consort to her brother Ether, deity of light, and is the mother to Uranus and Gaia, the sky and earth deities. Also, the name for Rome's day deity is Dies, spelled the same as dies. The fact that Jane is a life player just makes this funny for me. When enthralled by the Tiara Top's mind control, Jane becomes more cold and calculating, but her consciousness is still present, able to blush at a compliment and be more upfront with her feelings for Jake, albeit in a very disturbing fashion. She's even shown to be distraught at accidentally causing Roxy's death in the rebooted universe. Also, when Betty Bother showed the commands to obey, stay asleep, cease reproduction, and consume, did anyone else think that they were specifically for Jane, Jake, Dirk, and Roxy?
I think everyone did, Miss Jen.
Jane technically counts for troll royalty, as she, Pfeffery, and Mina are heroes of life and have an immediate connection to the condescension. Pfeffery being descendant and heir, Mina being her pre-Scratch self, and Jane being heir to her company. Her beta version even being raised by her. All three, or four, also use types of forks for their strife specify. Even the soles of Jane's shoes in her god tier form are fuchsia. Furthering Jane's connection to Pfeffery, both characters were usually positive and cheerful, but would in fact cut you if angered, and in addition, both had an awkward friendship with their session's hope player. One-sided feelings and all. Of course, in the Aradia episode we showed that Jane and the Burgundy Blood Aradia have several things in common. They're the only two characters to have gone through 2 entries into the medium. Both are maids with themes centering around life and death. They've both had a red and blue color scheme at some point, and both come from post-Scratch universes. On top of that, with her birthday as 4/13, Jane is an Aries. In addition, if you take into account that she's a Prospect dweller with the life aspect, Jane's Alternian zodiac sign is Arski, the medic, which aligns with her aspect. The opposite of the doom aspect, the life aspect is associated with healing and resurrection. The official Homestuck Zodiac quiz confirms that life-bound beings are healers, like those staff and hammer wielding white mages. Might explain why they can't take a hit and tend to die easily and often. Life players tend to care and nurture their teammates, seeing to their physical and mental well-being. Empathetic and great listeners, a life player knows exactly what you need to do to make things right again. But they might be very insistent on it, and you might not always like the cure that they offer. However, you don't take the group's healer for granted, because if you allow them to continue to put others' needs before their own, life players can become bitter, making everyone miserable in the long run. Keep an eye out for passive-aggressive behavior as a telltale sign that they've been bottling their emotions up and that they're gonna snap. And the last Fridgestuck fact for Jane Crocker is... What am I looking at?
Are you telling me that you don't see a ridiculous parallel with Jane and Grandma worth commenting on?
I don't know. All I see is a brainwashed Jane in her red hood next to Grimbark Jade, who's looking like a wolf, and she's technically not Grandma. Oh, that's a good one. Little Red Riding Hood. Wait.
Oh no, don't look too deep into it.
Oh gosh, all I'm thinking about is the moral behind that particular fable.
Plus he didn't intend
the fact that Jane's a maid.
For someone to interpret it like that.
But Jade's the wolf, so... I need brain bleach. Thank you guys so much for watching this Fridgestuck episode for Jane Crocker. I hope you enjoyed. Any facts I missed? Do you have a character or concept that you'd like to see? Leave it down in a comment below and it might end up on the show someday. Be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend, and check out my Patreon, and I will see you all next time. Bye!
Happy birthday, John.
Cake? Ugh. Yeah, thanks. Nana, what does this say?